Hello and welcome to the Luscious Living Podcast. I'm your host, Celine Vilgan, holistic nutrition consultant and the founder of Luscious Living, where personal growth meets wellness. Hello and welcome to the Luscious Living Podcast. I am so excited to have Britt on the show today. I've been on hers twice now, and I knew that you're going to love her as well. We're going to be talking all about gut health, something that I get asked quite a bit about, and I know the fundamentals, but not to the extent that Britt knows. So I'm excited to go into bloating and gut health and constipation and all those fun things that I don't think we talk about nearly enough at all. And it's funny, I was just with a client yesterday and she told me, I showed her the Bristol stool chart and she printed it out for her family and now they all know. And so anyways, I think the more we know about this, the more it's going to help society as a whole. So Britt, thank you for doing what you do. My fellow holistic nutritionist over in Ontario, please share with us, how did you get started on really helping your clients with gut health? How did your journey start?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? We've talked about this on my podcast as well, and your, focus in hormone health, but I really do think that like our poop and our periods are the strongest indicator of health. And these are two things that we really just don't talk enough about. And like it's not common dinner time conversation, that's for sure. But yeah, my own story, it started with digestive health and the stress anxiety connection. I have always been like a bit of an anxious person, definitely a type A personality, bit of a perfectionist. Throughout high school, it definitely started to get a little bit worse. And again, a little bit in university. But what I really noticed was when I finished university and moved home, my anxiety it felt like really getting in the way of my everyday life. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was dealing with a lot of digestive concerns, like, I wasn't digesting food. I was noticing undigested food in the stool. I was very bloated most of the time. And I would see that's when I started seeing a naturopath, specifically about digestion, because I was always like, the anxiety is something I can deal with. Like, I don't need to talk to someone about it. And, maybe a little bit embarrassed about it, which is why I like to talk about it so much now.
Totally.
And so I really was seeking help from the digestion standpoint and kind of trying to ignore the anxiety. And now I realize how connected those two things are. And, from a digestion standpoint, I tried a lot of the things. I, did low FODMAP. I tried elimination diets. I've been a vegetarian most of my life. I've actually just recently started incorporating some animal protein back in. And so it took me kind of recognizing that connection that my anxiety might have to stress. And that was me going to school for holistic nutrition, kind of like leaving my full-time job that was contributing to a lot of my stress and anxiety, going back to school and recognizing that, wow, these things are actually super connected. And once I started to pay attention to some of those signs and signals my body was sending me, because on paper, my diet looked pretty good, but in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't supporting my anxiety and it wasn't supporting my gut health. And we can certainly talk about a few of the things that, like a few of those holes that I had, but that's what got me started. And I think when it comes to working, like I commonly work with, yes, a lot of people with digestive and gut issues, but also a lot of people with stress and anxiety. So I like to make my work with clients something that's very simplified. Like nutrition is often overcomplicated. Simplified, we habit stack, we focus on small things that we can build on, because those small daily habits are so valuable and they're often overlooked. So yeah, that's kind of my passion now, is helping people simplify nutrition, create sustainable long-term healthy habits, focus on digestive improvements, and supporting the mind as a result of that as well.
I love it. This is so good. So you talk about the mind and gut connection.
Yeah.
Right? And I've come across clients who are like, we eat very clean, and it's not really about the cleanness in
No.
some cases, right? And so,
Mhm.
we now know that the gut bacteria it connects to serotonin and GABA and our feel-good neurotransmitter, our anti-anxiety neurotransmitter. So can you actually share with us what the connection with the mind and the gut really is, so listeners are like, oh, okay, that's starting to kind of click in here?
Absolutely. There's so many connections. Like your gut is actually commonly referred to as your second brain. Like if you're like, okay, listen to your gut, there's a reason. Are you listening with your gut or your heart or your head? So there's a reason for that. The gut is physically connected to the mind through your vagus nerve, which communicates information using neurotransmitters and gut hormones. And then you also have your gut bacteria, which are producing things like serotonin, like you mentioned, that feel good chemical messenger. So there's a number of ways the gut can have influences on our mind. Those are two super big ones. Another one is, well, of course, its impact on digestion. How well are we digesting foods? Are we absorbing nutrients? We need certain nutrients more during periods of stress. We want to make sure digestion is happening effectively. And yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with that bacterial diversity, and having a nice diverse microbiome. If you think about our nervous system. So I'm sure you've heard of the fight or flight nervous system versus our rest and digest nervous system. And when we are stressed, like the impact that stress has. Okay, so I'm kind of jumping ahead because I know we're going to talk about stress and digestion, but this is a really strong connection because when we are going through periods of stress and our body is spending more time in a fight or flight mode, and we're spending more time in that sympathetic nervous system, the last thing your body wants to do is digest lunch. It's like, I am busy running away from this lion that's charging me. Even though we aren't running or fighting from our stressors these days. Usually it's, financial, everything, the environment that we live in.
Yes. Yeah.
So what we're left with is like, we're chronically stressed with nothing to fight or flee from, and our body doesn't recognize that. So the more time we can spend in a rest and digest nervous system state, the better we're going to digest that food. I use an analogy that a friend and fellow nutritionist shared with me once. And it was like, if you are eating Christmas dinner, massive meal, bigger than usual, and your cousin or sibling asks you to go for a 5K run right after dinner, there's no way. I'd be like, you're crazy. I'm going to rest. I'm going to chill. I'm going to digest this huge meal. But if a robber breaks into your house and threatens your well-being, you are running, and you are more than capable of doing that.
Yep.
So that's a really good, view on that shift in that rest and digest nervous system state. And our level of stress has impacts, biochemically on the body in terms of how much stomach acid is produced, how quickly food moves through the gastrointestinal tract. You might notice that when you're going through periods of stress, maybe you experience diarrhea or constipation, because some people, it completely halts that peristaltic action. And in some people, it quickens it up. So it's a little bit individual on that front. But yeah, those are some strong connections between both stress and digestion and the mind and the gut.
It's fascinating to hear this because just before recording, we're talking a little bit about IBS and how some people are going to, there's IBS where you're constipated or IBS where you have diarrhea. And I just had a client email me saying how stressed out she is lately and has diarrhea, right? And some people might go on more the constipation side. So what are some strategies that you have for women who might not even realize that they're stressed or may have that awareness that they can do to start to really help with their digestion, starting with mind first and mind body connection first?
Absolutely. Like a lot of the work I do with clients, like, yes, a lot of it's food, absolutely, but a lot of it is lifestyle. And one of the first things, there's a couple. So one of the first things is I'm looking at your morning routine. Like, are you jumping out of bed at the last second, hitting snooze one too many times? You're not feeling rested, probably because you're stressed and cortisol is not doing its job, because that is our hormone that gets us out of bed feeling rested and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So if we're waking not feeling rested, we already know that we're probably stressed because that cortisol is out of whack. But we want to look at that morning routine. Are you allowing yourself enough more time in the morning to make a nourishing breakfast that's a good source of protein for our hormones? You're not relying on coffee first thing in the morning on an empty stomach because that's stressful. Stress hormone connection as well. And we are sitting down at the table to eat instead of eating on the go and in a rush, because that is stressful. And we really want to start our day as much as we can in that rest and digest nervous system state. So one thing that I like to recommend, if you don't already, is invest in an alarm clock that wakes you up with light first and then some gentle sounds. I have one that it starts about 30 minutes before I wake up, and the light starts first for about 30 minutes. And if that doesn't wake me up, then it starts with some like birds chirping, and it's like a little bit more gentle. I hate my iPhone alarm sound.
I hate it too. What brand, for those of you listening, and for me, what is there a specific brand that you love using?
You know what? I got mine from Amazon. I think Philips, I want to say. But yeah, a quick search on Amazon, you're going to find something similar. I think there's a lot of different options out there. Some are more pricey than others. I started using this because in my last place, I actually didn't have a huge window in my bedroom, and I found it really hard to get up because you know how important sunlight is in the morning. So I used kind of this light as a way to like kind of trick my body into thinking it was morning. But I still use it now, and I find it's like just a nice gentle way to wake up. So yeah, I would say your morning routine is super important. Eating your breakfast at the table, not on the go, and allowing yourself enough time to do that and not start your day in a frenzy. Another one that is really, really, really big is mindfulness at mealtime. And this again sounds pretty simple, but it's can be hard to implement. Like if you're listening and maybe you do resonate with like, yeah, I often eat, even if it's something healthy, like a smoothie in the car on the way to work. And your lunch, maybe you're at your desk while you're writing an email, and dinner, you're watching TV and you're on the couch. All of those things are not, focused on your meal in front of you. And we really need to be focused on that meal so that our mind can send that signal to our digestive system like, okay, food's coming in. We should probably start making some hydrochloric acid. We should secrete some of these digestive juices. And when you're not being mindful and you're distracted or you're stressed because you're working, or maybe you're watching the news, or you're having a stressful conversation around the dinner table, all of those secretions and all of those processes are being impacted. So mindful mealtime doesn't need to be complicated. It might mean sitting at a table instead of the couch. It might mean limiting distractions, putting your phone away. If you absolutely need the television because you get bored, I get it. I'm the same sometimes. Put something that makes you laugh on TV. Like, let's not watch the news or, that action-packed thriller. And just really being aware of the sight, the smell, the texture of your food, and setting that fork down in between bites so you can take some time to chew and really be present with your meal.
That's so brilliant, Britt, because often we want to overcomplicate it. And I think people often also, when it like comes to weight loss or hormone health, they're like, I thought it was going to be so much bigger, like more complicated, and it's really not. So I really appreciate these super tangible tips as well. And so when you look back, when you see clients that come to you, do you find that these are some pretty big factors in common that people come when they already have digestive issues?
100%. A lot of the people come to me for digestive issues. And then, as a secondary side note, they're like, yeah, I'm pretty stressed. And it's like, okay, what do you do to manage your stress? And usually there's not much in place. So we need to be aware of how that stress can be connected to digestion, but also recognizing that, mental and emotional stress is only one piece of that. So if you're like, yeah, you know what, my job doesn't really stress me out. I'm not worried about money. Like I'm not a stressed out person. Your body could be going through periods of stress if you're over exercising, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not eating enough.
Mhm.
So I don't know if this is something that you see with some of your weight loss clients, but chronically under eating, waking up at 6 a.m. to get that gym workout in. So you're not sleeping enough. And, the scale isn't budging because you're kind of in this cortisol,
Yep.
heightened state. So a lot of these other things can be stressful on the body in addition, being on that blood sugar roller coaster. That was part of my story. That contributes to stress,
Mhm.
anxiety, inflammation. And so, gut dysbiosis, leaky gut, all of these things that contribute to inflammation in the body. Inflammation is stress. So, I think we often think about stress as this emotional sphere, which is certainly one aspect of it, but it's only one aspect. So some people who might be like, oh, I'm not that stressed. And it's like, well, let's focus on blood sugar balance. Let's look at your gut. Let's look at these other things that your body might be perceiving as stress.
Oh my gosh, I remember clearly one of my clients, she was like, had her arms stretch out, and she has 4 kids, vegan diet, which again, I was vegan and raw vegan at one point. And she's like, Celine, I'm not stressed. When I asked her, like, how are your stress levels? I'm not stressed. And so sometimes we forget how
Mhm.
we are because we're so used to it. So when we look at the mind body connection, so key. What about foods? What are some of the best foods for gut health and digestion? And what are some of the worst foods?
Absolutely. This is another area where I do like to simplify it. I'll simplify it with number one, and then I'll finish with I have three foods that I love for gut health.
Mm.
One is a bit of a category in that anything that's colorful, like colorful fruits and veggies, are going to be antioxidant rich in polyphenols, which your brain loves, your
Mm-hmm.
gut loves, gives you different types of fibers. There's studies out there that show if we can get 30 plus different plant foods in a week, and that's whole grains, veggies, fruits, nuts, seeds, that's going to result in a more diverse microbiome and the benefits associated with that than if you eat 10 or fewer. So I like to make that a weekly challenge. If I did hemp hearts in my smoothie on Monday, maybe I'll do chia seeds on Tuesday and even flax on Wednesday as like a little way to just diversify. And it's just like a fun game for me to like, okay, in my curry this week, I did green beans already. Let's do some zucchini. And I don't know. I think making cooking fun, getting as much color in there as you can, and getting as much diversity in there as you can is going to be great. Now, if you are getting started on your healing journey and say you only get like 10, don't go straight for 30. Like your gut is a muscle. We need to flex it. You wouldn't start going to the gym by going 7 days a week. You would feel terrible. And the same goes for introducing some of these foods. So start small.
Love it.
And start with cooked, because again, cooking these things is going to help improve, or it's a little bit easier for you to digest that way. So that's number one, diversity. Like if you always reach for broccoli and that's your go-to veggie, go for cauliflower this week. Or if
Mhm.
you always go for apples as a snack, go for a pear or a banana this week. It doesn't need to be extravagant. Just switch it up. That's number one. Number two of my favorite, gut supportive foods, one I actually have right in front of me, is some bone broth. I
Nice.
Do you drink bone broth?
I love bone broth.
You know what? It's something that I've just recently, so I've been a vegetarian for like most of my life, like more of my life than I've not been. But I really see the benefit of bone broth. So when I was going through periods of illness or maybe post food poisoning or something like that, I would include bone broth, even though I was vegetarian. So I was like, you know what? My body needs it.
Yes, good. Yeah.
And just recently, in the last few months, I've started including some animal protein. So I'm trying to make it more of a daily habit. But I love bone broth for the healing and sealing benefits to the gut lining. When we think of leaky gut, we are, there's a lot of symptoms associated with that. Most commonly, like bloating, indigestion, because what's happening, and even immune system issues, because as the gut lining becomes more permeable and allowing more undigested food to get through, bacteria, viruses, fungi, whatever's in that gut to leak into the bloodstream, your body starts mounting this immune response against it. Fatigue is a really common symptom I see with this, because your body's going into overdrive. There's inflammation and it's trying to protect itself. So something like bone broth is really helpful to heal and seal that gut lining because of the nutrients like collagen, glycine, glutamine, and you can just sip on it. Like this cup that I have in front of me has 10 grams of protein, which I'm really aware of trying to get, enough protein in a day. So that's one that I love. And you know what? I shouldn't even say love. I love the idea of it, and I'm still trying to like the taste of it.
There. What are your thoughts before we go into the third tip there on like collagen supplements?
I personally like them. I add collagen to my smoothies. Also, since I'm a personal trainer and I'm quite active, my husband and I, so it's something that both of us supplement with for our joints as well. Collagen production naturally decreases as we age. And one thing I would say to remember is that we need vitamin C to build a collagen matrix. So don't forget about, those vitamin C rich fruits and veggies. But yeah, I like collagen as well.
Love it. Thanks for my little like sticky note on my collagen. Okay, so the third food category or tip you have for gut health.
So this one is really going to depend on the person, but fermented foods. I love fermented foods, and I'm actually starting a kombucha company as well, which is crazy. I know. That's the other. I literally have kombucha in front of me as well. Such a gut health nerd over here.
Love it.
So kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi, these are all fermented foods that are probiotic in nature, meaning that they have beneficial bacteria in them. So, I know a lot of listeners have probably heard of probiotics or they've taken a probiotic. This is kind of like nature's probiotic. You're getting tons of bacterial benefits from them. There are some people that don't deal well with this. One, if you have a candida overgrowth, the yeast in kombucha is not going to make you feel great. And two, if you have SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, any type of good bacteria is going to make you feel more bloated. So if you try it and you feel worse, don't push it. It's a sign that you've got something bigger going on and you should talk to someone like myself that can help you through that. But for many people, fermented foods are an excellent option. A few things to look out for. One with kombucha is sugar content. A lot of the kombucha I see in stores now are super high in sugar. So they're basically like soda with bacteria.
Yes.
And that's going to lead us eventually into some of those worst offenders for the gut. But, so for kombucha, pay attention to sugar content is the biggest one. And look at the ingredient list. Make sure, it's sweetened naturally, that, you've got fruit for sweetness in there. And then a big one with sauerkraut and kimchi. So I love these fermented cabbages. But what you'll see often in stores is on the ingredient list, you'll see vinegar listed. And you don't want vinegar on the ingredient list of these foods because that means that it wasn't fermented. It's just cabbage in vinegar. So you're probably like, Britt, the taste vinegary, I don't understand. It's because that fermentation process produces lactic acid bacteria, which gives you that kind of vinegary taste. So you want to see just cabbage, salt, and maybe some spices. Kimchi has a few added ingredients like green onions and ginger and garlic. But aside from that, you shouldn't see any vinegar, and that salt and that cabbage in the passage of time is what's going to give you that bacterial benefit. Now, the second thing to pay attention to with sauerkraut and kimchi is that it's stored in the refrigerated section. So say you see something on the shelf, there's no vinegar on the label. You're like, yes, this is a good option. No, because since it's on the shelf, it's been pasteurized with heat, which means everything is dead. So it's fine to eat. It's not hurting you, but it's not giving you those same benefits. So you want something in the fridge, no vinegar on the label, for sauerkraut and kimchi. And there's lots of options. One of my favorite brands is Wild Brine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one.
Oh, I love that. That is so valuable. I'm so happy that you mentioned those two notes on sauerkraut and kimchi and things like this, and pickles even. So good.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
then what about foods that are common offenders to the gut and even microbiome?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few. Now, I'm definitely the type of nutritionist that like everything can fit. You know, my podcast is called the Balance with Britt podcast. So this isn't me like kind of demonizing these foods, but it's certainly something that we shouldn't have in excess in our diets. Number one is sugar. So that's why I mentioned the sugar in kombucha, because sugar is just a simple fuel source for our bad gut bugs. And it's a constant battle in our gut of the good and the bad. And our gut bugs turn over so frequently that we need to really be supporting those good guys all the time. So a high sugar diet is what's going to give you a lot of that dysbiosis in the long run, as those bad guys are left to really go to town and thrive on those simple sugars. And what you'll find is when you have a lot of sugar in your diet, your body craves more of it because more of those bacteria are proliferating and signaling for cravings for more of their preferred fuel source so they can continue to proliferate. So that's why a lot of people often feel pretty crummy when they start to cut out sugar, because they're getting a lot of the die off of those bacteria because they are being starved off of their preferred fuel source. So sugar is a really big one. And again, it's not like you can never have sugar. It's just like being aware of it. But the thing is too, sugar has a really stimulating effect on our central nervous system as well. And it's a big trigger for people with stress and anxiety. So even though it kind of makes you feel good short term, long term, it's really triggering to that stress response. And that's having even more impacts on digestion. So there's a few different reasons why I don't, prioritize it in my diet.
And Britt, for those listening, they're like, okay, sugar, does that mean fruit? Does that mean honey? Does that
good question.
Candy? Yeah. Like flavored yogurt? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. That's a really good question. So when it comes to fruit has a fiber source in there as well. And fiber helps slow the release of glucose into the bloodstream. So it's kind of got that natural ability to not be as blood sugar spiking. But often with fruit, even what I will do for the blood sugar roller coaster is pair it with a healthy source of protein, fat, or fiber, right? So you're going to get some nut butter with your apple, or maybe some cashews with your clementines, or pecans with your kiwis. But yeah, no, I will never, ever, ever tell people not to eat something healthy like fruit. So fruit, A-okay. When it comes to things like yogurts, it just depends on how much added sugar there is. A lot of those like fruit bottom yogurts, they can have up to 20 grams of sugar per serving, which is a candy bar, right? So sometimes I'm working with people and they're like, no, I'm doing like my breakfasts are great. I have some yogurt and some granola with fruit on top. And they're unknowingly having up to 40 grams of sugar per breakfast. Right? Which is stress inducing, anxiety inducing, feeding the bad gut bugs. And it's something that they're thinking they're making a healthy decision on. So, yogurt, you really need to
that way, right?
Yeah. So that's something that's a simple switch, is like switching I would rather for yogurt, as an example, do an unflavored full fat Greek yogurt, or coconut yogurt if you are plant-based, and add whatever flavors you want, add some fruit, add some nuts and seeds, and a drizzle of honey. My go-to natural sweeteners are honey and maple syrup, a good raw local honey. And yeah, like, I mean, I live in Northern Ontario, so the maple syrup is flowing. So yeah. And then of course, the candies and the chocolates, these are things you want to, or like, baked goods, more of those, simple sugars certainly are things that we have in more limited amounts. But even for myself, I know sugar is a really big trigger for myself and my anxiety and irritability. And like, it was my husband's birthday on the weekend, and I had cake like twice in that weekend. And of course I'm going to, it's all about balance. but I was feeling it on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's important to just like listen to your body and know that there's a time and a place for everything. It's not about being perfect,
Mm,
but you know, being aware of like, yeah, that extra bloat might be have something to do with that candy bar I had, or, I'm feeling a little extra anxious or irritable. I was probably on that blood sugar roller coaster.
mhm.
So yeah, that's the sugar connection. And then kind of on the flip side of that is even artificial sweeteners. Not a fan, right? Like there was that Diet Coke phase where it's like, it's okay, there's no calories, but no, it's doing more damage.
Mm,
Artificial sweeteners have really inhibitory effects on gut homeostasis. So that balance of our healthy gut bacteria. So I would much rather see my friends and clients focus on natural sweeteners that, yes, do have an impact on your blood sugar, but are more natural and authentic to what our body can recognize.
it's so crazy you say that because I would say with like, let's say the pop example, I'd rather a client have regular like Coca-Cola if they're going to have
Yep.
it over Diet Coke.
Yep.
Because the research is out there with the impact of artificial sugar on the microbiome, but
Yep.
it's very profitable to have Diet Cokes out there, right?
I know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's still some people like I still have family members that, like they have Diet Coke at the family dinner and it's fine. Like, I think every once in a while, yeah, okay. But there's a couple other options in terms of pop. Like I used to love a good soda back in my high anxiety days. And that's actually when I fell in love with kombucha because it has a nice bubble to
Mm,
it. And it does have a little bit of sweetness, absolutely, but it's got a lot of other benefits as well. And you can mitigate that sweetness by getting certain brands that are low in sugar. So that's one option that I found helpful to like kind of ditch the pop craving.
love it. And Britt, what about some of those healthy foods like broccoli or asparagus that sometimes people have trouble digesting? Why do they get bloated after eating something healthy?
Yes, that's such a good question. So many people have issues with those cruciferous veggies. And it has to do with the types of sugars and fibers they contain. They're just more difficult to digest. And it's one of those things, like I mentioned, the gut is a muscle. If you don't have these things and then you just have like a full on broccoli dish, you're going to be farty. And it's probably going to smell like rotten eggs because those types of foods have sulfur in them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you get this like stinky toots. So I would say that if you get gassy with cruciferous vegetables, one, we want to look, at is there any type of dysbiosis? Do you have other symptoms of dysbiosis? Do we need to rebalance any gut bacteria? Is there a reason why you're not digesting these things well? Because when it comes to, for example, the sugar in cruciferous vegetables called raffinose, it ends up in the gut undigested, and it's digested by our bacteria. And that digestive process that fermentation process produces gas. So we want to make sure that we're breaking down these things as much as well as possible. One, start small, start with just a small amount of them and cook it. That
Mm-hmm.
helps, kind of create this easier to digest element by cooking it instead of having it raw. And flex that gut muscle. Don't go from having it once and getting bloated and feeling uncomfortable and never having it again. Think about ways that you can work to improve digestion by, slowing down mealtime. Chew that food really thoroughly. Be mindful at mealtime. Try and encourage that, those gastric secretions. And I find chewing a really big one, absolutely, for the fibers and, breaking down all those elements. But start small, cook, and pay attention to other symptoms of, digestive insufficiency. And maybe there are some imbalances you need to sort out before you reintroduce them. But often people can tolerate them in at least small amounts. It depends on the person, of course.
Love it. And what about people who are experiencing bloating at night only?
Yeah, this one's really interesting. So There's a couple of reasons why that might happen. One, if you're eating too close to bedtime and then you're lying down and you're in a horizontal position, gravity kind of helps us move food through the digestive system. Another thing I find too is like if we're not eating enough during the day, like, you have a small breakfast, you're eating on the go, maybe you have a salad for lunch, but then you have a massive dinner and you still need to get the rest of those calories in and you're snacking all night long. That is going to be more than our digestive capacity can handle, and you're probably going to feel bloated. So that to me, like sometimes is a bit of a lifestyle thing. Like, okay, are we spreading out those calories efficiently throughout the day? Are we getting enough calories during the day so that you don't feel like you need to overeat at night? I'm also looking for signs of low stomach acid to make sure, are we breaking things down as efficiently as possible? But those are a couple things I look for when it comes to bloating at night for sure.
I love it. So on the topic of low stomach acid as well, are there any supplements, digestive enzymes, bitters, greens powders, anything that you is a for sure something that you think people can try, and then one that goes into your overrated bucket?
There's a couple things, and it really does depend on the person. I tend to first focus on lifestyle factors like, okay, digestive enzymes are great, but if you're going to eat your sandwich, hovered over the kitchen sink, then like it's still not going to be great, right? So the major difference between digestive enzymes and digestive bitters are enzymes are providing your body with an exogenous or external source of enzymes, which I mean, maybe sounds obvious. But then digestive bitters are basically the super bitter liquid that you add to some water that you have a little bit before a meal. And that bitterness really stimulates the body to produce those gastric secretions. So one is giving your body the enzymes, and one is encouraging your body to produce more of its own enzymes. So I tend to start with, I start with the lifestyle factors. I start with the morning routine, the mindfulness around mealtime, all of those things. And if there's still signs of digestive insufficiency, then I might lead into that. We also want to pay attention to stress and, nutrient deficiencies and different things that can contribute to low stomach acid. Because I don't want to just provide a client with enzymes and not, figure out why they have low enzymes, right? So many people can benefit from enzymes. I don't start with them right away. If you have issues of like ulcers, of course, like not recommended. You don't want to add more irritation. But yeah, a good quality like multi-enzyme, many people can benefit from. If you notice heartburn or discomfort when you take it, it's probably a sign that you don't need it. But one common misconception is that all heartburn is associated with too much stomach acid.
Podcast episode on
there's
that.
a whole separate episode about that, and I won't get into it here. But just because you have too much stomach acid doesn't mean, just because you have acid reflux, it doesn't mean that you have too much stomach acid. So that's one kind of element that can be a little bit confusing because a lot of the symptoms overlap, and you might need to you can try digestive enzyme and see how it goes. And if you feel heartburn, you obviously don't need it, and you should explore more of the overactive stomach options. But I'm very much I find that a lot of people, aside from like therapeutic diets, like people who are going through SIBO and different, pretty intense imbalances, the average person, we can get producing enough of their own enzymes that you don't need to rely on digestive enzymes through eating bitter foods, focusing on stress management around mealtime, encouraging that rest and digest nervous system state, restoring imbalances of nutrients or nutrient deficiencies by limiting sugar. And, sometimes it is about the foods that we limit as well. So I prefer to start with that. And then, if you're still not finding answers, working with someone and navigating it with someone for sure. But yeah, that's the big difference. And I mean, you outlined it so perfectly on some of those options, the greens, the bitters, the enzymes. Those are all definitely some good options.
And I have to say, I haven't seen a client who's been taking greens powders with like barley grass and wheatgrass long term that don't experience digestive issues. Just because I don't believe that we are meant to digest some of these grasses. Cows are, but any thoughts on that? Have you seen that in your practice?
You know what? That's an amazing question. I've not had a lot of clients come through with greens powders and that type of thing. I personally don't recommend them generally.
Yeah.
One, it's a cost thing. A lot of them are quite expensive.
Totally.
Like, it's like, I mean, buy some spinach, buy some kale. That's expensive enough, right? So I like to be pretty realistic in the supplements and the food that I recommend. And it's out of most people's budget, and I don't think it's necessary.
Totally.
I would rather see you toss some spinach in your smoothie and then you're good to go.
Totally. And what about probiotics for gut health? Because I see a lot of time like we hear, okay, probiotics are good for gut health, and then will it help with bloating? What are your thoughts on probiotics and gut health there?
Absolutely. Like, I certainly think there's a time and a place. I don't take a probiotic. I drink
Okay.
kombucha, I get sauerkraut, I get
Yeah.
kimchi. I think for the average everyday person, we can get enough beneficial bacteria from our diet. If you're post antibiotic, or if you're going through like intense imbalances where you need a little extra support, maybe post food poisoning or something where you've had like, an intense bout of diarrhea and you've really flushed a lot of things out, you might need a little added support. But I think for day to day, um, I I like to use food. And again, it's just one more thing. Like, probiotics are expensive.
They because you want to get a good quality one, and
Yeah.
they definitely do add up for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I personally am a food first kind of person. And if we're still noticing imbalances, then yeah, we might reach for a probiotic to get a little bit more support during those periods where we need it. But I personally haven't taken one in a while. I take a probiotic when I travel.
Mhm.
And yeah, like if I ever needed to be on antibiotics, I would certainly take one away from the antibiotics themselves. But, with that, so I don't, I look at the gut as a rainforest. So it's like this big rainforest that has like trees and shrubs and animals and plants
Mhm.
and all the things, right? So I want a nice diverse microbiome and to get it, we get this diversity of plant foods. We have diversity in our fermented foods. We incorporate all these different beneficial bacteria, and we provide them with a home that they want to live in, with some bone broth to heal that gut lining, with, anti-inflammatory ingredients to reduce inflammation in the gut. And then when you do get an intestinal insult that comes in, like maybe food borne illness, maybe it wipes out all your pine trees, but you
Mhm.
got a lot to back yourself up, right? And I had this happen to myself recently where myself and a friend both got food poisoning at the same time. And I felt so proud of myself. It wasn't fun for one day, but then I was completely fine. I was better after a day, and it lingered a lot longer with her. And I attribute it to my gut rainforest.
Yes. It's so true. I mean, Hippocrates said the father of medicine, right, is that all disease starts in the gut. And so,
Absolutely.
that this has been so valuable. I have learned from you as well, Britt, today. And for those listening who are definitely having some challenges, maybe you've tried some of these things, maybe you have not. Britt, what would you recommend, and who is one-on-one support for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one-on-one support can be for anyone, like whether you have been dealing with this for a long time or if it's something that's new. I think if you're dealing with bloating, discomfort, a lot of people don't recognize that like gut issues aren't just bloating, discomfort, diarrhea, constipation, right? So, yes, of course, those things, if you're constipated or you're getting, chronic diarrhea, you should talk to someone. And because when it comes, if you go see your doctor or if you go to Dr. Google, a lot of the solutions are addressing the symptom. We're addressing the symptom of constipation. Here's a laxative. We're addressing the symptom of diarrhea. Here's some, drink some water or something like that to replenish lost water.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to recognize that these are symptoms that our body is telling us. And usually, the bigger picture is there's a few different puzzle pieces going on. So in addition to, when we're talking about gut health imbalances, yeah, you might notice bloating, constipation, diarrhea, whatever it is, but you might also notice acne, eczema, skin issues, joint pain, brain fog, fatigue is a really big one, anxiety, depression, that mental health connection, like we talked about, is so, so strong. So I think it's important to recognize that, yes, gut things are important to look at, but we want to look at it in the broader context of our overall health as well. So, you might just be bloated, but then you're, also waking up feeling terrible in the morning, you're fatigued, you have joint pain, and you're in your 30s and you really shouldn't be. Totally. So, right. So yes. I think it's important that we're paying attention to the broader picture as well, because our gut, if we look at it like a bicycle wheel, it is the wheel, and all of the spokes are our other organ systems. We need a healthy, right? We need a healthy gut for a healthy foundation, for a healthy mind, healthy skin, healthy immune system. 70% of our immune system resides in our gut. So we, as much as, bloating is uncomfortable, let's look at some of those other things that's happening as well. Asthma, allergies, those can be connected to the gut as well.
Like endometriosis and gut health, right? Or arthritis and gut
100%.
health. Hashimoto's gut health. So all those autoimmune also goes hand in hand with gut health. And these things look like bloating or indigestion or constipation at first, and then years later develop into other challenges. And so what you're doing is so powerful. And on that note, you have a program coming up. Tell us more about it.
Yes, I'm so excited. So I have a group program that's launching April 10th. This is actually a self-paced course that I have that I'm running a cohort through with them. And it's called my Fuel Your Fire program. And this is because I view the digestive system as a bonfire, right? So if we have this digestive system that is this weak, sputtering flame, all it takes is one wet log in that slice of pizza at girls' night to snuff out your flame, right? And so what I am working on doing throughout this 12 weeks with you, which you can do self-paced anytime, but I'm leading a cohort through starting April 10th, is we're working to slowly remove some of those wet logs and add some fuel to the digestive bonfire. We're talking liver health. We're talking cortisol, stress, blood sugar balance, for, again, even that hormone balance foundation element. We're talking, healing and sealing the gut lining, the benefits of restorative movement, and everything in between. So that is going to be just amazing. I'm excited to walk people through that. If you're looking to connect, you can also find me on Instagram. My handle is Holistic Britt Nutrition. And I'm on the same handle on TikTok. And my podcast, the Balance with Britt podcast. There's so many ways that you can chat with me.
I will make sure all of those links are in the description. And really, Britt has so much information on her Instagram. Her podcast is incredible and has a variety of guests on there as well. And I love that you called what you call your program name, because in Ayurveda, right, the digestive fire, Agni, is also that metaphor. And so I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, Britt. Thank you so much for being on the show. I know this is going to help so many women who are just like, what the heck do I do with my gut health? And so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give the show a 5-star review if you feel like you learned something new today. All of the mentioned links will be in the show notes. And also, are we connected on Instagram? Find me over at _lusciousliving_ and come say hi. See you next episode.